to the beach is when you see the offshore storms way off in the distance. You can't hear the thunder, but you see that lightning offshore. And I always pull out radar scope onto the beach, and you're like, holy cow, that thing's 30 miles offshore or something, and it blows your mind. We've actually seen storms at the beach from our Charlotte tower cam. And I think it's a good point you mentioned. Sometimes these storms are 30, 40, 50,000 feet tall. So you're going to see the tops of them. And when they're electrified like they are in the summer, it's pretty amazing. So another great picture you got this week, and I know last week was the Fireball Bonanza daytime, but you got a great shot, speaking of the beach, of another meteor. Tell me about this picture, because this is a great picture, by the way. It's a long exposure shot from the Outer Banks of this meteor that was caught.
So this was my buddy down there, Forrest. He was doing a time lapse, actually. He was out there. He's out in Oak Island, actually, is where he is. And he was looking out offshore, and I think there was some of that lightning that he was trying to capture. This is a bit of a cropped image here to a smaller part of the frame, but what you see is another one of these fireballs. And up here in the Greensboro area, we didn't have as much conversation about that last week because we couldn't see it quite as well as down in Charlotte, but this big bolide or meteorite that came down in South Carolina created a big flash in the daytime sky, which is super rare. Nighttime, a little more common to see a fireball, and if you do, sometimes it can have this little bit of a greenish tint to it. Amazing illumination here, and it's contrasted with that night sky, and it's just a warm summer night. I'm so jealous of him. I can't remember ever seeing as good of a fireball as we get these pictures of personally. Just haven't been lucky, I guess. But they're out there, and if you ever see one, let us know.
It's so funny sometimes. I have cameras on my roof that are always rolling. They're like Ring cameras. You catch them, and people are like, "Oh, I wish I would have known." It's like nobody knows when these things are going to happen. It's like you can't time them out. So he was extremely lucky to be doing a time lapse and catch it. That's probably the only way you could get it. Speaking of the fireball last week, one thing that was pretty cool that I saw after that, that fireball down in Georgia, was the meteorite hunters are out collecting meteorites all over Georgia, and they're finding a bunch of fragments, and I see people selling them already online, which is crazy. And the thing is about, someone asked me, what's like a gold rush down there for meteorites, but you got to find them on public land, and most people find them on streets and cul-de-sacs and stuff. So thanks again for everybody who sent those pictures into Tim. I promise you I'll bring some great ones this week, but that'll be a great part of our show going forward. If you guys have questions, comments, or something cool you want Tim and I to explain on this show, send it our way. Send it via social media, email, or just send it to the station. We'd love to talk about it. But thanks again for joining us tonight. The show goes quick. Stick around, though. Colin's going to be coming up next.
Good evening, everyone, as we start our 7 to 9 show here on WCNC Plus inside the Impact Studio. We're going to get straight to some of the breaking news that we have. Just seeing that Bryan Kohberger is taking this plea deal in the student murders case in Idaho. This broke within the last couple of hours that he accepted this plea deal in the Idaho student murders case. According to a letter sent to the victims' family members, this developing story just started this afternoon. And it sounds like he will avoid the death penalty with this, but will still serve 4 life sentences. So will stay in prison for the rest of his life. The quadruple murder trial was set to begin in August, but of course now that has been scrapped. So his acceptance that came, as I said earlier this afternoon, by multiple sources reporting this. He was charged in the 2022 stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students, and then pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. As I said, he's now going to avoid the death penalty and will instead serve those 4 life sentences. A family friend actually was able to talk a little bit about that earlier today. Madison Mogan, who's been very outspoken, I would say, in this case, as this has been ongoing for a couple of years now. Again, the trial was going to start in August, and a judge previously ruling that prosecutors, they were looking to seek the death penalty against Kohberger if he was convicted in this trial, but obviously that has gone by the wayside. He's accused of stabbing and killing Madison Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, and another student at an off-campus home in Idaho on November 13th. And then arrested months later at his parents' home in eastern Pennsylvania. So that's a little bit background about the case. Again, Bryan Kohberger accepting a plea deal, will still serve 4 life sentences and will stay in prison, but it doesn't sound like the death penalty will be on the table now for this man. We also got some updates in the ambush in Idaho. The firefighters there, very interesting that this is from the same state in some sense. And so we are seeing some updates and had a press conference earlier that we can show you in the last couple of minutes. But we know that this broke over the weekend in Idaho, that a man who started a wildfire and then fatally shot 2 firefighters and wounded another firefighter in northern Idaho. Apparently he was a person known to first responders and to police. So this situation unfolded on Sunday on a mountain, and it was a popular recreation area for a lot of folks to be going to, and especially during the weekend. This could have been much worse. So a fascinating situation in terms of what happened. Clearly, we don't want to see any EMS or law enforcement personnel injured or ever in this type of predicament. But in terms of how this happened, the investigation is still coming together. So we'll go to this press conference earlier from the sheriff there in Idaho, and we'll give you a little bit more background.
And to let you know that we had a jumper off of Veterans Bridge, and we'll give you just a little bit of information on that. So the suspect that has been identified by our Cooney County Coroner's Office, Coroner Duke Johnson there, has been identified as Wes Val Rowley, date of birth of May 1st, 2005. As of right now, and this is all very, very preliminary, we've had a lot of resources at the crime scene. We've been working through the night, so many of these facts are subject to change. We believe that Rowley has prior residence in California, Arizona, and Idaho. We believe he was born in California. The Cooney County Sheriff's Office and Coeur d'Alene Police Department, we've had 5 interactions with Rowley. And of those 5 interactions, we've had 3. Coeur d'Alene Police had 2. They're very, very minor in nature. They had to do with more trespassing. He was trespassing at a location. He was asked to leave, and he cooperated. We had some welfare checks on Rolly, and very, very minor. We don't show any criminal history for Rolly. We do have some.
All right, we want to get to a press conference that's happening right now. Kootenai County, the Sheriff's Department right now updating the situation and this this ambush for these firefighters. So let's go to this in real time.
Like I said, he is in ICU at Kootenai Health, and our focus and support is going to be with the Tisdale family at this point.
All right, having some technical difficulties from Coeur d'Alene, the city there in Idaho where all of this happened. Kootenai is the county. We just heard from the sheriff earlier in a press conference that happened just moments ago. And we're trying to pull up this live press conference as they are updating things minute by minute as this happened on Sunday. So a lot of the discussion that is happening now is about the suspect, Wes Roley, who you heard the sheriff discussing. And as I said a couple of minutes ago at the top of our show, that this suspect was known to police, to EMS and first responders. I think we have it back up. We'll go back to this press conference and we'll give you updates after it.
It has been nothing short of amazing, and all agencies involved will be needing every bit of that moving forward as we have a long road ahead of us. With that, I would like to turn the podium over to Union President Gabe Eckert with Local 710.
Yesterday was a terrible day. We as firefighters lost 2 brothers and saw 1 hospitalized with serious injuries. And this community lost 2 dedicated public servants. The outpourings of support from this community has been incredible, and the amount of food, cards, offers for help, everything is truly appreciated. For those who want to donate, you can donate with either the Red and Blue Foundation, the Jeff Welch Memorial Foundation, and there are also accounts set up for all 3 families and then the 3 families individually that can be accessed through First and there are also accounts set up for all 3 families and then the 3 families individually that can be accessed through any First Interstate Bank. These will all be linked to on our social medias in the following hours. In the meantime, we'd ask that you allow the families the peace that they deserve so that they can mourn their losses. And these men were dedicated firefighters. They were dedicated to their community. Speaking to Tisdale, speaking to Morrison, these guys were hard workers. They loved their families. I just want to share a little story. 2 weeks ago, my last memory with John. I had the opportunity to work with him as he worked back on my shift as a battalion chief. We had kind of a rare moment with a lull at the station, and we went out onto the back patio and we smoked cigars and we talked with each other, and we talked about being better fathers, we talked about being better leaders, we talked about being better firefighters. And I just want to say I am so incredibly grateful that that gets to be my last memory with him. So if there's anything you guys take away from this, I want you to know these were dedicated men, and they were dedicated to this community. Thank you very much.
I'm Justin Zabel, President, Local 2856, Kootenai County Firefighters. This tragedy does not define our community. What's often overlooked in times like these is the overwhelming love and support we receive from the people we serve. It's that love for this community that inspired Brother Morrison and Brother Hartwood to answer the call in service to their families, their union brothers and sisters, and the place they called home. They made the ultimate sacrifice in that service. The men and women of Local 710 and Local 2856 will continue to answer that call because it's who we are. And it's how we honor the memory of our brothers who gave their lives doing the job they loved in service to others. Thank you.
As they both mentioned, there are donation opportunities that you can find on all of our social media pages. I want to remind people that this is, again, an incredibly fluid situation, changing on a minute's notice. The one thing I can announce is that we are doing a procession returning back to the city. As you know, we did a procession to the medical examiner's office yesterday. I just got told that we are leaving the medical examiner's office in Spokane at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we will be returning to English Funeral Chapel on 4th Street in Coeur d'Alene. We certainly invite the public to honor our firefighters and our heroes by standing on the bridges and the overpass and lining the roads. We would absolutely appreciate the support. Please again know that our firefighters and our staff and our chiefs and our commissioners and our elected officials truly appreciate and feel the love that our community is sending to us right now. With that, I'm going to ask Mayor Woody McEvers to come up and say a few words.
On behalf of myself, the City Council, the employees of the City of Coeur d'Alene, and all the members of our community, I want to begin by offering my deepest sympathy to the families of those tragically killed and injured yesterday in the line of duty. What they are going through is incredibly hard and heart-wrenching. And I want them to know that we're thinking of them. I also pledge that we'll stand with them in the coming days and weeks and months to offer all the respect and support and I want to thank all law enforcement, fire, and emergency personnel from many, many agencies throughout the region and the federal government who work so hard and heroically to deal with an event that was so unprecedented in our community. We still are in shock and are struggling to understand why someone would target unarmed, selfless public servants. Law enforcement is continuing to investigate what happened and why. But for now, let's focus on remembering those we lost and the families left behind. Firefighters have a special place in my heart. They do what they do out of love for the job and their community. It's a difficult and dangerous job. But the danger is encountered every day is not something they would ever thought they would have to face. Face it, they did, with courage and honor. I'm proud of them. I honor them. In closing, I'm so grateful to see how everyone has rallied around the families and colleagues of these firefighters. We live in a very special community of very special people. I know we'll never forget January 29th and the ultimate sacrifice made by our dear husbands, friends, and fathers. They will always shine brightly in our memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we're going to open this up to some questions. We do have a couple of statements before we get started with the questions. So we can confirm, we just know that these are going to be two things that are absolutely things that we want to confirm or dispel. There was pre-incident contact with the suspect by our firefighters upon their arrival, but it was minimal contact, and there was certainly no criminal or suspected activity as a result of that. The other piece I want to dispel is that the families were notified via social media. That is absolutely false. Both families of the fallen firefighters as well as the injured firefighter were notified by department personnel and have indeed been have had a 24-hour watch with fire department personnel with the families ever since the incident took place. So having those questions come up earlier, we figured we would just take care of that now. So happy to answer a question.
Chief, you just sort of answered part of my question. I'm wondering if you have any more details about that minimal preliminary contact. And then if not, the sheriff has indicated that the gunman at least expressed an interest in the past of maybe being a firefighter at one point. So wondering if he ever came across either of your departments, introduced himself.
I think the pre-incident contact is still being investigated. That was something new to us today. Again, we're not going to get into what the sheriff or the state police are investigating from a criminal aspect. And I can tell you from the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue standpoint, we had never had contact with the suspect. He had never applied for a position here or tested for a position here.
Good for you, Chief.
We are looking into some facts surrounding that question, but I cannot verify any of it at this point.
Thank you.
Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Very true to KXLY News. Are there any plans for a funeral of the bodies of firefighters?
That's a great question. So tonight, we've tapped into the resources of both the International Association of Firefighters, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and the International Fallen Firefighters Foundation. They're bringing in what they call their funeral response teams. We actually are meeting with them at 9:30 tonight when they're wheels down, and we will begin the planning process. But that involves the families, that involves all of the brothers and sisters. So obviously, as soon as we have a plan, that plan will be disseminated. We will have plenty of time. But obviously, that takes significant planning, and that will begin tonight at, like I said, about 9:30. Other questions?
Can we get spellings, please, of each of the firefighters? And also, we heard Ms. Battalion Chief Harwood's age, but we did not get an age for Chief Morrison.
I can give you Frank, F-R-A-N-K, Harwood, H-A-R-W-O-O-D, again, rank of Battalion Chief, and he was 42 years old.
John Morrison, M-O-R-R-I-S-O-N, 52 years old. He's been with us for 28 and a half years. Dave Tisdall, T-Y-S-D-A-L. He is 47 years of age, and he has been with us for 23 years at the rank of engineer.
Again, later this evening, there will be graphics that are being produced right now with both of their pictures. You'll be able to find it on, I believe, both Coeur d'Alene Fire and Kootenai Fire's social media pages, as well as Local 710 and Local 2856's pages. Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question. Most of the firefighters that responded were urban wildland firefighters, or from the city fire department, or the county?
All of the initial response was both a mix of the city and county fire in responding in a wildland urban interface setting.
Is there any update on the wildfire as it currently stands?
Yes, actually, we just got an update about 30 or 45 minutes ago. The fire is reasonably contained. They've stopped significant forward progress, but they're still working on it, and that all belongs under the jurisdiction of the Idaho Department of Lands now.
I said also Northern Lakes.
And we want to also thank our partners, Northern Lakes Fire Protection District. They were instrumental in both the firefight as well as the removal of patients and transporting patients yesterday under obviously extreme and duress conditions. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering how this changes how you go forward and how you handle responding to fires any differently?
I think at this point, I think we're going to obviously do a deep dive into what happened. The incident is still unfolding. We're finding things out hour by hour at this point. There will be a time for us to reflect on the incident. There will be a time for us to be able to evaluate our policies and our procedures and whether or not, should we have had more people on the initial attack. It's really impossible to say at this time. What I can commit to you is obviously we will do a deep dive, and I think we will do that together. We're partner agencies. We respond together every day. On this unfortunately was another routine call until it wasn't. And so our focus right now is obviously the families of the fallen and the injured. Our fire department families in making sure we heal through this, and then we can begin the dissection of what happened. And some of that is going to be with our law enforcement partners once they get a much better picture of truly what unfolded and why it unfolded.
On the human side, it's natural. I think immediately after this happened, everybody's going to have a heightened self-awareness level now rolling out the door. There's nothing we're going to do about that. That's just a natural response to this. This wasn't a event that we train for. We train every day for high risk, low frequency events that are dangerous in our profession, but we never imagined that we would be ambushed responding to a wildland incident at a command post. And so, now that heightened awareness is just a natural response to this every time we go out the door.
I again would use that as an opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners, and I would just advise our community, you may see this over the next few days, our law enforcement partners have stepped up and guaranteed a response to every call we go on, whether it would be a typical call that law enforcement went on. I think that gives our brothers and sisters in law enforcement an ease that they're there on the front side. It certainly gives our firefighters an ease as we're responding, and we were glad that was an offer they made to us, both, Coeur d'Alene City Police Department, Kootenai County Sheriff's Department, Post Falls Police Department, and ISP have all stepped up and said, we will absolutely go to every call you go on. So again, as Chief Grife said, that certain peace of mind, I don't know that we're ever going to be able to guarantee people's peace of mind, at least for a while after an incident like this, but we are taking every measure we can to ensure safety of our responders. Other questions? Yes, sir.
The sheriff alluded in his press conference to the fact that there may still be evidence at the fire scene. Does that affect how you're fighting the fire?
We're working in coordination. I know. So I want to be clear again. We handed the fire off to IDL yesterday when they arrived, and obviously the other incident unfolded. So neither of our agencies is involved at this point. I know that the State Fire Marshal's office is working with the detectives to work through the scene and process, be able to put the fire out as well as process evidence as they come across it.
Chief mentioned you'd never be prepared for something like this, but in listening to the national broadcast today and talking to different experts, this is unheard of, it seems like. Have you ever heard of anything like this ever?
Yeah, there have been a couple of cases of this, but certainly it's, as Chief Grife said, it's low frequency, high acuity. It's, and again, I want to be clear, we've been asked this a lot today, is, well, do you train for active shooters? And we absolutely do. We have equipment but this wasn't an active shooter call. The initial response was to a wildland urban interface brush fire on the side of a mountain. And so Again, we went in, we saw smoke showing. We went in like we do all the time and attacked the fire, and then unfortunately we got attacked. And as the sheriff said very well last night, the way they were attacked and ambushed, they never had a chance. Other questions? If not, we certainly appreciate everybody being here today. We appreciate, again, we want to thank our community for their amazing level of support. We want to thank our elected officials, so many of whom are here today, supporting us in this piece of things, but also just as they've been here since minute one yesterday. We feel like we have incredible support. I again want to thank our brothers and sisters at Coeur d'Alene Fire as well as the other agencies, but I feel like we're walking hand in hand with this together, and that's really important, and you as the community should know you're well protected and you're well taken care of. So thank you again for being here today. Appreciate it.
Wow, a lot of bravery, a lot of courage by those men and women standing in Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, this evening, just now, giving an update on the victims, not spending any time really on the suspect in this. So we're going to spend some time as well and talk about the victims because Coonty County Fire and Rescue Chief Frank Harwood, who's 42, lost his life in this ambush. Coeur d'Alene Fire Department Battalion Chief John Morrison, also identified as the fallen firefighter, another one. And it's, as you heard, Christopher Way, the rescue chief for Coonty County Fire as well, talking about how Chief Harwood was a leader who did an amazing job. He was with the agency for more than 15 years. He was married, had 2 children, and was a former Army National Guard combat engineer. And Morrison, he served Coeur d'Alene for more than 28 years and moved up through the ranks in the department from firefighter to finally battalion chief. And you could just see the grief on many of those faces standing in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho this evening because of this incident. We do know the third individual who is injured in this is Dave Tisdall. He is 47 years old. Not much coming out just now about him, but on Sunday he did have surgery and was stable as of Sunday night. That's what the sheriff said in Idaho. So we had 2 killed, 1 injured in this ambush, and Wes Rowley is this 20-year-old suspect that they're still trying to compile not only a motive, but where this man had been, why he was in the area, and really why he chose Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, this mountainside, and then to start this wildfire. They're still trying to understand, and so that is a good segue for us to go back and center ourselves on the investigation, the criminal investigation, which is the sheriff was speaking on a little bit earlier, that we cut to that live press conference. We'll go back to that now so you have all the information right now.
And we have some copies of this that Lieutenant Mark Ellis will distribute. Where we're at with the crime scene. The crime scene is active. We still have the suspect's vehicle that is up down an embankment of the mountain. Deputies who responded on scene to protect life and engage the suspect thought it would be in their best interest to get rid of what they thought was Rowley's vehicle. So they had the frame of mind to push it over the side so he couldn't come around and get in that vehicle and flee. So we have not been able to find any manifesto. We have not been able to inventory the vehicle, although people that have seen the vehicle do believe it appeared as if he was living in the vehicle. There was a lot of debris that's in the vehicle, so that's all we have on that. Like I said again, we have not verified or found any manifesto. We have not done an inventory of that vehicle. I'd like to give you an update on the fire that we believe Rowley started. Rowley was found to be in possession of a flint starter, and we believe that was his method for starting the fire that eventually led to firefighters responding. So as of right now, the fire is at 26 acres. It has not grown. It is a slow progress because it's very difficult terrain to get assets, ground assets up there. They are putting, Idaho Department of Lands is putting a lot of water on it from aerial supports, so that's going rather well. They believe they'll have a fire line around it by dark tonight. There are no structures that are threatened. Again, I'd like to say that last night about 11 p.m., we did receive information that an individual jumped from Veterans Bridge. That is not related to this situation whatsoever. We don't find any nexus to the murdering of the two firefighters and injuring of one. Now we have some of our incident commander who was here last night. That was the incident command of the scene. We have some of our SWAT operators that were here last night, and we had about 27 containment points on this mountain. And just to give you an idea, when you're setting up a containment in an urban setting, you might have 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks that you're setting up a containment on. But when you are setting up on a mountain, that just provides a lot more difficult dynamics than if it were a city block. So we, to the 27 containment points, we had 2, 3, 4 officers per containment point. And then we have a primary containment point where we believe the suspect is. And then we have a secondary containment point. And we absolutely utilized every resource that responded to the command post. And I do have the incident commander from last night if there's any questions. Kevin and Jeremy Heil, Kevin Smart, can you come up here just to be here just in case somebody has any questions? And
coming up, can I ask one question? You mentioned that there was no prior record. Are you talking specifically in Idaho, or is this also in California and Arizona?
At this time, we can't locate a criminal record for this individual. We've had interactions with him, but we don't find a criminal record with him. Also, we don't find that there's any nexus to any Islamic Jihad, which is also being disseminated on social media. We don't find that there's a nexus to that either.
Sure. Are you taking questions?
Yes, we're going to take questions.
Alex with the spokesman review. So are we clear, did the suspect die by suicide or was he shot by police? Do you know that yet?
It appears that he shot himself. Yes.
Do you know if he was stockpiling weapons up there or why he was on the road specifically? One gun, multiple guns?
We have information that he at one time wanted to be a firefighter. So we don't know if there's a nexus to that desire and what happened yesterday, but there is information that we've received that he at one time wanted to be a firefighter. So we're still processing the scene. It's going to take a few days to do that, especially with the current fire that's there. So, John?
Sheriff, have they had any communication with the fire district about a potential job there?
We have checked some of the fire entities here, and we have not located where he had either put in an application or put in some sort of a interest form. We have not found that yet. So that, we have not found that.
One more question here. There appears to be a video on Instagram. Was this posted right before the ambush?
Well, it was discovered right before, but I don't know how long it had been there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any indication of the motive?
Yeah, no, we don't have any indication of any motive at this time. And we, certainly we will continue to investigate that, but obviously we go on intent, and so but we will certainly find out, or if there's any evidence to believe that there was a motive, we will do that. And I think an inventory of the vehicle would be a good place to start.
Do you think his desire to potentially become a firefighter is part of this?
We just don't know. Yeah, we just don't know. The gentleman.
These firearms, has that been determined yet? If
What?
these were his firearms that were used, or were they someone else's?
Has not been determined yet. The lady in the green.
Sheriff Cody Proctor with Frontier News. You mentioned that he had had interactions before with law enforcement, but had he had interactions before with firefighters?
You know, we did not check to see if he had any interaction with firefighters. We do know that he did contact the firefighters when they came on scene, and there was a discussion. So we're still in the process of investigating that part of it. So, gentleman in the blue in the back.
Sheriff, Dwight, talk to me about why you're sharing these instrumentals. Talk to us, what does it look like when you're looking at this and what it symbolizes to the department?
Well, we're trying to collect any and all information, and those social media posts are what we call open source information. So this is all in an effort to find out intent, to find out if there was any other, if there was a motive or whatever the case may be. But
another question. We had some people that live in the area of the evacuation zone last night, or this shelter in place. They say they didn't get a phone call, they didn't get a text. How does your system work? Was there a text that went out, or how did you let people know?
Yes, absolutely. Part of our Kootenai Alerts system, we sent out a text, I believe, a 5-mile radius, and I encourage people who live or frequent the area to sign up for Kootenai Alerts. So
that's an opt-in service?
Well, yes. Yep. The gentleman in the blue.
Sure. The welfare checks that you guys initiated, were they given by a relative? Did a parent call you to check on him? Or are they concerned about his mental health?
No, it was generally a reporting party who called and saw a vehicle that was either parked near their property or on their property. One was a restaurant where he appeared to be residing at. He was asked to leave and he complied. So none of them that we have at this time were called in from a relative. They were called in from a property owner or passerby. The gentleman there in the...
Sheriff, can you describe the weapon that you found next to...
It appears right now we have a shotgun that was used, but we're still processing the scene.
So obviously a shotgun is not a sniper weapon.
Correct.
Do you know what kind of weapon that was?
Well, we're still processing the scene, but let me kind of set the scene for everybody. When you're in a rural area and you're heavily treed, heavily brushed, and when you're taking fire, then it just adds a whole different dynamic to the situation. So what was reported by people on scene, by peace officers on scene, that they believed they were taking sniper fire, yes. And that's where that is. Lady in the black.
Hi. Was he a suspect before you found him, or did you not identify him until after you found his remains?
Can you give me that first part again?
Was he a suspect prior to you finding his body, or were you not sure who he was until after you found his remains?
Well, we had information that we had an idea who that person might be, but we always defer to the coroner's office to make sure that we have a positive identification on the individual. People borrow people's car, people use people's phones. So we always want to make sure that we have a positive identification before we make any type of release. So this lady in the...
Are you able to identify yet if Wes was the person who called 911, who made the initial 911 call?
Still under investigation. If that is the case, he did not use his real name. So, but it certainly will be part of the investigation. But we had an individual called, a male, and he did not use the suspect's name. So.
One more clarification, because I think I misunderstood. Did you say there was an interaction with first responders?
There was an interaction with the firefighters.
When they first arrived on the scene?
Correct.
What was that?
It had something to do with his vehicle being parked where it was. So, yeah. The gentleman in the blue in the back.
Can you tell us what type of bullets then were used in the attack on the three firefighters?
Right. Well, we know that some rifled slugs were used, and a rifled slug is a pretty big projectile. Anybody know off the top of their head how many grains a rifled slug is?
12 grains is 1 ounce.
Yeah. So generally going to be a 1 ounce piece of metal. But we also have some fragmentation of something. So it's still early on. You know, we have some smaller projectiles, and we don't know if that was a fragmentation of one of the rifled slugs or another weapon. Like I said, we're still processing that scene. The firefighters are putting water on it, so we're still processing that. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, can you tell us how sophisticated you think this ambush was? Or do you think this was an interaction that went badly? And one more thing, we were just right outside the scene, and we saw a firefighting vehicle come down with 3 completely flat tires. Were spikes used? Was that part of the ambush?
No, part of once the rounds started to exchange back and forth, and when deputies got on the scene, part of the theory was we don't want him to be able to circle back around and get into either one of the fire trucks or his own vehicle. So deputies disabled the trucks, and they pushed over the suspect vehicle off the side of the mountain.
I mean, that just gives you a sense of how chaotic the moment must have been.
Oh, yeah.
Disabling and crippling their own vehicles so the suspect that's unseen and elusive wouldn't be able to circle back and use it.
Right. And we just don't, we just don't know in many cases, even if it's in an urban setting in a retail shopping center, how many suspects there are. Because we're going to get different information, and we have to be able to evaluate that information to see what's credible, what's not credible. We always want to err on the side of caution, but initial reports were what there were more than one suspect. Right here in the...
I just want to make sure I'm completely clear on this. So at the moment, as things stand as far as the weapons go, you were confident that he used the shotgun. It's possible that he used another weapon. You're not actually sure, and you don't know what that other weapon would be. Is that right?
Yeah, we're still processing the scene. So we know that there was a shotgun used. Absolutely. 100%. We know that for sure. So.
Sheriff, I'm sorry if this is really asked. Do you have like survivalist training or any type of like...
We cannot find any evidence that he has had any type of survivalist training. Now, he did grow up in a, from what we understand, he did grow up in a arborist family, and that they climb trees. And we did have reports that he was shooting at first responders via a tree. So he does have experience climbing trees.
I also just wanted to clarify, you had said in the previous press conference you were talking about misinformation. This is kind of going off the beaten path, but can you elaborate a bit on what that misinformation was? And I guess it felt like you had said families were finding out via Facebook, and I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so what happened, firefighting and EMS channels here in Kootenai County are not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not encrypted. Law enforcement channels are encrypted. So pretty quickly there was audio of the help call that came out and was broadcasted on social media. And that is just really, really hard on the families. Had they heard that, and I don't know if they did or didn't, but had they heard that, they would be able to identify their voice of their loved one and just make a chaotic situation more chaotic. So that's one of the.
I just want to be clear, none of the families were notified through social media. They were.
I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part of it. Yeah, I do not know. Lady in the black there.
But where does that interaction, that first interaction with firefighters fit there? If they have that interaction, how soon after that is there gunfire?
There was an interaction, so they arrived on scene. The initial call was about approximately 1:20. They arrived on scene. I'm going to guesstimate, I would say probably about 13:50 or about 10 minutes until 2 o'clock. Somebody. Go ahead.
One question I have is, you mentioned when you were doing welfare checks, what were those interactions like? Was the suspect just acting normal? Was there anything off about him at all during any of those interactions? Was there anything that stuck out for those?
Yeah, he cooperated on each one. He was told that, hey, the owner is asking you to leave. He left. There are certain criteria that we have to meet to be able to engage in somebody's well-being, and he did not meet those requirements at the time. So, yeah. Jeremy?
His body is it in a condition where we can determine if there's any drugs or medication in the system?
That'll be part of the autopsy. Yes.
Do you know how long he was here in Idaho, and also just I know this is like a popular recreation area. So how many people, just members of the public, may have been up there during all of this hiking and just enjoying the day?
Well, it is a popular trail. As far as how many people actually, Lieutenant Klinkefus, do you have any idea of how many people might use it's like 25 miles of trail up there?
Yes, sir. On a Sunday afternoon, there could be a couple hundred citizens up there. Folks who use dirt bikes up there, they hike, mountain bike, e-bikes, very popular. I don't know exactly how many were there at that moment. There could have been several hundred on the mountain at that time.
Were they rescued? Were law enforcement jumping, helping rescue them, get them out?
There were people that were still coming down the mountain, and this is at approximately 30 hours, or about 3:30 yesterday. So people were still coming off of the mountain.
Sheriff, did the Instagram photo that or the story, that you gave us, was his Instagram deleted? His social media has been wiped now, and is that by your doing, or what was?
Preliminary information is that we believe it has been wiped, but we don't know by who.
Okay.
Yeah. The lady in the rust color.
Can you tell me what sort of role federal agencies played in what played out yesterday, or would you have been able to do this without them, or?
Yeah, they were very, very helpful in providing assets, providing ground assets, and providing aerial assets. Like I said yesterday, we did have 2 helicopters that had a sniper in them. They were very, very helpful in real-time location of the suspect's phone. That was very helpful. And they were there not to take over anything. Each one of them came up to us and said, hey, what can we do to help? We're here as a resource. So we believe they were very, very helpful.
Could you describe those social media posts that are now no longer online? Of course, we've got this Instagram story, but we can't see those posts now.
Right, yeah. Like I said, it's either they've been removed or the account has been deleted. So we don't know. We know at one time it was there, but now we know it's gone. So I don't know what previous posts were there.
Sheriff, has the suspect's family been contacted, and if so, are they cooperating with the investigation at all?
The suspect's family knows of the situation, and they're still processing the situation also. Yeah.
Sheriff, is this the camo outfit that you guys found him in?
No, this is a previous post.
And then has the ATF been able to help you guys pinpoint, like, when he had that shotgun, and you guys been able to trace back where he bought that shotgun?
We haven't got there yet, yeah. Like I said, it's still pretty hot up there, but we'll get all that information. We just don't have that as of right now.
Are you more convinced
Is it to
today?
have snipers in the air when you've got people who are recreating up there kind of off the mountain? How do you deal with that?
Well, it does provide a challenge in the rural area like that. But obviously, we would not. We want them to identify the target first before they took any action. But it was an active shooter situation, and we have radio traffic where there was an exchange of gunfire between suspect and deputies. So we want.
Interrupt this really quickly, and we'll go back to this in a second. We have some breaking news in this Iredell County shooting investigation. Some updates in this. We just got a news release, and I'll just read from it because it does confirm that shortly after 3:30 p.m. on Monday, June 30th, today, Iredell County Sheriff's Office deputy was involved in a shooting incident outside of the Family Dollar, which is located on 3338 Harmony Highway in Harmony, North Carolina. The Iredell County Sheriff Darren Campbell says the response originated from a family member's concern regarding the suspect's welfare. Upon arrival, the deputy encountered a male suspect attempting to enter the store while armed with an edged weapon. In an effort to protect the public and prevent entry, the deputy positioned his vehicle in front of the entrance. The situation escalated quickly when the suspect ignored numerous commands to drop this weapon. The deputy deployed a taser in an attempt to subdue the individual. However, the attempt proved ineffective as the suspect advanced toward the entrance to the Family Dollar with customers who inside, after repeated warnings, were disregarded to drop the weapon. The deputy discharged his firearm, striking the suspect. That suspect was transported to Wake Forest Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem in stable condition. The deputy involved was not injured in this encounter. In accordance with the standard procedure, the NCSBI will conduct an independent investigation into this shooting. Again, we just got this information around 7:48, and we wanted to pass it along to you immediately as we were waiting for this update in this Iredell County shooting investigation to be brought to us. And thankfully, the Sheriff's Office did give this update to us. So again, we'll have more for you, in-depth coverage tonight at 11, but did want to let you know that this was an officer-involved shooting in Harmony. But the officer was not hurt. The suspect is in stable condition and was transported to a hospital in Winston-Salem. We'll go back to this firefighter ambush update in Idaho right now.
Closing in to the scene, can you describe?
Yeah, they said that the fire approached within 50 feet, and at that time it was a determination was made that we should probably remove the body and take what we can and then remove from the area. So that was the decision that was made at the time.
So you're going through a crime scene right now that has been burned over by fire.
Yeah, it's not the perfect situation, but sometimes you have to make the best choice, and that was the best choice at that time. All right, anybody?
So, clarifying question. Was he in the tree when he talked about firefighters who asked him to move the car? Could you sort of walk us through sort of making that?
We don't believe he was in the tree at the time, but we believe that he engaged deputies from the tree.
And you mean gunfire?
Correct, yeah.
Last night you mentioned that there was a belief that he could be running from spot to spot. Has that been determined that he was moving actively across the mountain?
Still under investigation. You know, we want to make sure that we do a complete search of that area, that there's no guns left over. So still under investigation.
And then, is there anything you want the public to really understand about this, or do you want them to not do, or any kind of notice?
Well, we're still processing the whole situation, but until the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department and the Kootenai County Fire Search and Rescue, until they put out a press release on where to give, I would encourage people to wait for that. There is one particular entity called they just changed their name, but it's called Kootenai County Red and Blue Line. I know them for a fact. I know that the board of directors do not take any money from them whatsoever, but I can anticipate we'll probably have people that are going to take advantage of this situation and try to scam people out of money for it. So I would encourage people to wait until there's an official press release from both of those entities on where to give.
Sheriff, really early in the wildfire investigation, but is there any indication that he lit them in multiple areas, multiple spots on the mountain, or does it seem to have stepped from one spot?
Yeah, right now we're still trying to contain it. It's not contained at this time, so until we can get it contained and get some investigators up there, then we don't know at this time.
Sheriff, are there 300 people that reports 300 law enforcement involved in this?
Yep.
So is this a war zone up there? How many shots were fired?
Well, we don't know exactly how many shots were fired at this time, but at the beginning of this event, we knew that it was tragic, and we knew that there were reports that there were multiple shooters. Whether that turns out to be or not, in an operation like this, you always want to plan and prepare for the largest event, and then it's easy to scale down. But if you don't prepare for the larger event and you need more resources, it's not a good situation. So the train of thought is always prepare for a larger event. But in this particular case, an active shooter in a rural area, that just...
All right, we're going to go to the State Department's daily press briefing, with Tammy Bruce, and get an update on everything that's going on, not only in Washington, but across the world.
Happy Monday. I'll explain in a moment. I will explain in a moment. Thank you for being here. It's a Monday, and I will be a little short today as the President is beginning some signings at the White House and the Oval Office. We don't want to conflict, so forgive me in that regard. But I do have a few announcements for you here, and we'll start. President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio continue to deliver on this administration's vision of peace through strength, resolute diplomacy backed by principled leadership. On June 27th, Secretary Rubio, Undersecretary Allison Hooker, and Senior Advisor Masad Boulos hosted the ministerial signing of a landmark peace agreement between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. The agreement marks a historic milestone for the Great Lakes region, bringing an end to a 30-year war. The United States, in coordination with the African Union, Qatar, and Togo, will continue supporting full implementation of this comprehensive peace deal to pave the way for mutual prosperity. Tomorrow, Secretary Rubio will welcome his Quad counterparts from Australia, India, and Japan to Washington to reaffirm our shared commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. This ministerial reinforces our joint resolve to defend sovereignty, strengthen regional maritime security, and build resilient supply chains. And as you may know, today President Trump will issue a new executive order lifting U.S. sanctions on Syria, reaffirming his belief that the Syrian people deserve a future of safety and prosperity. This policy reflects the President's conviction that American leadership can unlock new paths to regional stability. Finally, the Department's Middle East Task Force ended its activities on Friday, June 27th. U.S. embassies and consulates throughout the region are open and providing routine and emergency consular services. The department also continues to share information and updates with U.S. citizens affected by the conflict. As of today, we have sent nearly 100 security alerts since the onset of the crisis. Additionally, a total of 16 flights departed Israel with over 650 U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents and their accompanying immediate family members. We are grateful to our partners in the region, particularly Greece, Italy, and Cyprus, for welcoming U.S. citizens on these assisted departure flights, and to our partners in Qatar and around the world. It is a good thing to be able to say that today to you. I now welcome your questions. All right, yes, Humaira, not that you have anything ever on your mind. Let's do it.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yes, ma'am.
So a couple of questions. One on Israel, actually. I was going to ask about Syria, but I'll get to it later. So Haaretz newspaper last week reported that Israel's military advocate general has ordered an investigation into possible war crimes over allegations that Israeli forces deliberately fired at Palestinian civilians near Gaza aid distribution sites. These are the ones that GHF does, as you know. And then today, Israeli military acknowledged that Palestinian civilians were harmed at these aid.
All right, I want to let you know all the things that we are watching at this moment. Obviously, watching Tammy Bruce in the State Department. That happened earlier today. But right now, going on live, the Senate is still working on voting on a litany of amendments added to this big, beautiful bill coined by President Trump. We obviously heard Senator Tom Tillis, the way that he was going to vote for it, and then the ramifications, or you could say his announcement coming after what he said about the big, beautiful bill, not seeking re-election, kind of throwing things up in the air for his Senate seat. We've seen some movement, potential interest by Laura Trump, and obviously we'll continue to follow that throughout the next couple of months and into the midterms in 2026. And if we get any updates from the Senate floor as they work through these amendments and voting on the big, beautiful bill, we will, of course, bring you that and let you know. Obviously, at stake is this Medicaid and Medicare, and Senator Tillis saying nearly 600,000 people in North Carolina were going to lose coverage, which is why he was going to vote against it. So again, if anything develops in that realm, in terms of this big, beautiful bill, we'll let you know. But obviously, on that bottom box there, we're also seeing the family of Jabari Peoples holding a candlelight vigil tonight. This is 1 week after he was killed from a police officer's gun. And some of the story behind this, the Homewood Police Department said that officers were investigating a suspicious vehicle at a soccer field off of Lakeshore Drive in Alabama. This is coming from WVTM 13 if you want to get more information. But from their report, they say a uniformed officer approached the car that Peoples and his girlfriend were in. The officer smelled marijuana. According to a police statement, the officer ordered both people to leave and exit the vehicle. But at that point, the officer saw a handgun in the driver's side door. According to the statement, Peoples resisted while the officer was attempting to place him in handcuffs for unlawful possession of marijuana. Police say that Peoples broke away from the officer and retrieved the gun. The officer, then fearing for his safety, fired one round. Police say Peoples fell to the ground with the gun still in his hand, and that the officer gave him multiple commands to drop the weapon. The girlfriend today told his family that he complied with the officer's commands and did not have a weapon. So Peoples later died at UAB Hospital after receiving emergency medical aid at the scene. So this situation is ongoing. Obviously, the community reeling from this in Homewood, Alabama. And again, a strong show of support for this teenager killed by a police officer in Alabama. Again, we're watching all of these incidents happening live right now on WCNC Plus. These breaking stories and real-time coverage. We'll give you any updates as soon as we get them in either of these stories that we are watching live for you tonight on this Monday.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive those who are trespassing.
How does the president's aspirations for a ceasefire, now that the landscape has been changed appreciably, how is that affected by the Israeli strikes in Gaza City today? How does he view any of that with alarm? Are there conversations with the government of
I
Israel?
would caution that with reports from the area, that we in fact honor the fact that there are investigations and to wait for actual facts. That I think will be very useful. Again, at the same time, we know the president has an excellent relationship with Bibi Netanyahu, that we in fact have made a commitment, he has from the beginning of this administration, to change that environment. And it's that commitment remains. Certainly, we know the story is that 51 million meals have been distributed through the region, through Gaza. We also know the president has called for new ideas. This is part of that. And the regional partners are acting on that as well. We know this can't continue. We Israel is an ally of ours. We, of course, I'm not going to discuss or presume to know the conversations the President's having. That is his prerogative.
May I just clarify?
Yes, ma'am.
I may have been imprecise. I was not referring to any strikes on the aid of food delivery. I was referring to separate strikes that have been reported in the north, in Gaza City, that resulted in several casualties.
Well, again, this is a war. This is a war zone. Hamas has still not put down their weapons. We had a ceasefire, which they violated, and refused to engage in another one. We continue, despite all of that, to get another ceasefire, but the ceasefire was broken by Hamas. It's a war. If to speak about the specifics of what Israel is doing, I would direct you to the Israeli government, and I think it's important to recognize that this is a process that is ongoing. Our role in this is to help ease the suffering as much as we can, and certainly part of that is going to hopefully get a ceasefire. The President is optimistic, and so we will be as well. Right. Matt Lee maybe has a question.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I do. But first, I just want to get very, very briefly.
I might want to go on and on,
How
Matt.
do you,
I don't know.
How do you decide? Well, my question is going to be very, very.
Oh, all right. Yes.
How do you decide when it's okay to speak about revoking someone's visa? Because for years and years and years, decades in fact, in covering this building, it's always the mantra has been visa records are confidential. Mm-hmm. And yet we have a situation where an entertainer in the UK has had his visa revoked very publicly by the Deputy Secretary of State in a tweet, retweeted by Secretary Rubio, and confirmed by other officials. So, what's the deal with this law? Does it not really apply unless you want it to? Unless you don't want to talk about it?
Well, yeah, I can't speak to the decisions at the times of when to discuss something of this sort. What we do know is a very public dynamic with individuals. We have a very public policy and procedure and process now that we're discussing regarding national security and how we are handling the visa process. In this particular case, of course, what you're referring to is the tweet from our Deputy Secretary of State, Christopher Landau, that the State Department has revoked the U.S. visas for the members of the Bob Dylan band in light of their hateful tirade at Glastonbury, including leading the crowd in death chants. Foreigners who glorify violence and hatred are not welcome visitors to our country. Now, we've stated that when it comes to how we vet people, if they are going to be coming here to be helpful, to be nice people, to be great tourists, or if they're coming for other reasons, that every sovereign nation has a right to decide who's going to come to this country. So we've been public about that standard. And this was a very public event that violated, as you've seen from the Deputy Secretary's tweet, that very basic standard about the nature of who we want to let into the country. That's all right. It is important the American people support us taking care about who comes here. And I think his tweet and the Secretary's language and his approach on the policy speaks for itself.
Okay, so it basically, if it's a public kind of facing thing, then
I didn't say that. I said in this case that that's what has occurred. And I think that it's the policy certainly is clear for individuals, but when we're thinking about the nature of the policy itself that has been publicly discussed, they chose to do so this time.
And then just also very briefly on Syria, there is this, as you mentioned, the President's going to be signing this executive order
Correct.
Shortly in the next 10, 15
That's
minutes
right.
or so. Can you give us an idea what the State Department component of the impact of what this will do? What is state? Because I know it's Treasury and Commerce all involved. So what happens at the State Department after this EO is signed?
Well, it is sanctions and aspects like that, of course, belong to the Treasury. A lot of people don't know that they're the ones who manage that with the application, the nature of what occurs. I will repeat what my colleague Caroline said just a little bit ago about this event. The President is going to sign an executive order to terminate the U.S. sanctions program on Syria, and this is in an effort to promote and support the country's path towards stability and peace. The order will remove sanctions on Syria while maintaining sanctions on the former President Assad, his associates, human rights abusers, drug traffickers, persons linked to chemical weapons activities, ISIS members and their affiliates, and Iranian proxies. Again, this is an action that the president has promised and shocked the world within Saudi Arabia, because when he first announced this plan, he is committed to supporting a Syria that is stable, united, and at peace with itself and its neighbors. So in this particular application, of course, this is about the Treasury, it's about the White House, and certainly our special envoy, Ambassador Barrack, and his now application and work getting that country back on its feet. All right, Sean.
Can we go back to the music a bit?
Yes, sir.
On Glastonbury, just getting to the decision to revoke the visas, members of this administration, particularly the Vice President, have been very vocal about free expression, saying that even if things are hateful, particularly the Vice President took to task Germany and to a certain extent the UK, saying that there are laws that prohibit hateful content and insults, that those are inappropriate. What's the difference here? I mean, I'm not justifying, I'm not supporting the Bob Dylan as a band, but why is it that that this speech is out of line while you have there's at the same time a push to not to outlaw free expression elsewhere when it comes to insults?
Right. I think that, again, this is not about the nature of a concert, I suppose, but it really is about our standards, about who we let in the country. That we're not telling people what they can sing about or what they can say. It's not involved here at all. They obviously felt free to say what they were saying and chanting at Glastonbury, and they can do that. And we can do what we do. So it really is about the issue of national security, about issues of violence, the increase certainly of anti-Semitism, but of terrorism in general. That dynamic, the crime in the United States, what happened with the open border, the transnational gangs that are here, this kind of wanton dynamic that has ruined American lives, that has created cities that are unlivable, and every American deserves better. They deserve to know they have leadership, as we do now. And that's why they voted for Donald Trump, was simple, basic law and order, respect for your neighbor, and if you're coming to this country, respect for the people who are here. So I think that when we think about why you have a visa system, which is in part to vet, and to stop and to ask questions, is to take that seriously.
Well, can I just pursue that in one other case of free expression? Hungary, Prime Minister Orban, who of course is a close ally of the president, tried to ban a pride parade this weekend. Tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people came out. Does the U.S. have a view on that? Do you think that it's justified to ban an LGBTQ pride parade?
Well, when the Vice President or any of us speak about the nature of policy, or I think what's important regarding freedom of expression, that's our plan and what we feel is important to convey, and then what countries do is their business. Events happen all over the world, as we know, every day, which the United States has no comment about. And we have nothing to add on this matter. But again, I think it's about what what countries do, the choices they make with their nations, and what citizens do and how they respond to that.
With respect, I mean, the U.S. did criticize the UK over bans on anti-abortion protesters. Is there any contradiction in not?
Well, again, I'm not going to speak to individual situations or instances or comments that are made. Again, we have events that happen all the time all over the world, which might be worth commenting on, but we don't comment on all of them, I think, for a very good reason. Yes, sir.
On events happening all over the world, in Nigeria recently, more than 200 people were slaughtered earlier this month in a series of attacks on Christian villages by Islamic militants. Some 6,000 were displaced. What's state doing to address this? Is there anything state can do to address this?
Well, I can't speak about what is being discussed now or is in any kind of diplomatic conversations or planning, et cetera, but we're going to be briefing again on Wednesday. Today is a unique week because we have the Quad with the Secretary tomorrow, which I'll be a part of, so we'll be briefing on Wednesday. Let's take that back and find out where that stands and what our plans are. I'll have that for you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tanya. We'll move to Ukraine, if I may. Russians are stepping up their air attacks on Ukraine, which happen to be larger than ever before. The president on Friday addressed the Ukraine issue, and he said that Putin, quote-unquote, respects our country again. Well, hours after that, Putin unleashed the largest ever air attack on Ukraine. Do you think Russia respects President Trump?
I'm sorry, do I think?
Do you think Russia respects President Trump? If President Trump says that they respect me, next thing we see hours after that, they launch the largest.
Well, I don't. I've certainly, for obvious reasons, refused to characterize the most powerful man in the world who is saving this country and the world at this time. But I can tell you other things that he has said. Most recently, on the 25th, he said, "I consider him, Putin, a person that's been misguided." I'm very surprised, actually. I thought we would have had that settled, talking about certain issues. He also said, he called the other day, he said, "Can I help you with Iran?" I said, no, you can help me with Russia. You help me to get a settlement with Russia, and I think we're going to be able to get that done too. And also on Putin's ambitions regarding Ukraine, he said, I know one thing is that he'd like to settle. He'd like to get out of this thing. It's a mess for him. So the president, in negotiating and dealing with some of the worst conflicts, certainly that we've ever had, the carnage that is going on. The president is the one person who's been able to bring everyone to the table, who's willing to talk to everyone, who has the power of the United States at his back and the support of the American people. And I think that he understands, and he has repeated again within the last few days, just his frustration and lack of acceptance at the attacks that have gone on in Ukraine by Russia, and that it has to stop, that there are too many people dying. This remains a key element for his administration. It is a key part of the work that his administration as a whole is doing, is our support for Ukraine and the need for that carnage to stop.
Well, some of us covered President's trip last week, and you addressed from the podium his signature achievement, which is 5% of GDP spending, among NATO members. Lavrov today called it catastrophic, and he said that defense spending decision could lead, quote unquote, NATO's collapse. How did you read that?
Yes, I'm not going to speak to that, but what we do know is what apparently bothers Russia is the fact that NATO is going to be strongly returning to its original roots of being a deterrent. And that is what NATO's job has been. The advancement of their commitment to defense is remarkable, and not only we of course support NATO completely, and their role is imperative for a safe and stable Europe, and that's the point, being a deterrent. This kind of defense spending helps them achieve that. And of course, it is something that would not have happened without President Trump's encouragement and demand. And so we're excited about that. Yes, sir, in the back there.
Thank you very much. Two quick questions. Some regional sources said this week or next week, the U.S. representative to Syria will meet Mazloum Kobani and Prime Minister Masroor Barzani in Erbil. Can you update us about that?
No, I can't speak to any ongoing meetings or meetings that may or may not be coming up.
And second question about Iran. Iran's representative to United Nations has said that the conditions are not favorable for negotiation with the United States. What is your response to this statement, and what is your message would you like to send to the Iranian people?
Well, to the Iranian people, of course, as we've always been saying, is that every country is in the hands of its own people. When it comes to what Iran's leadership is saying, of what's left of it, the president's words and the president's position is the one that prevails here. It is his guiding hand, and he has been very transparent about his opinion, his desire for Iran to move into the normal order with countries, but also his awareness that, as he has stated, that he continues to be willing to do whatever is necessary to make sure there's peace in the region. And now this is the unusual point because of the president's schedule. It is 30 past the hour. I'm going to wrap it up today, but I will see you again on Wednesday. And you know how to reach me here. I think I've got an email. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Anything on the rips?
No.
All right, some interesting comments, which leads us to a good segue with more happening in Washington, D.C., but this time at the White House. We'll go to Caroline Levitt as she briefs us on everything that's happening there inside the White House.
Everybody. Did everyone have a good weekend? Yes. Good. It's good to see you back here. We have another busy week. On a scheduling note, tomorrow, President Trump will travel to the great state of Florida to attend the opening of a new illegal alien detention center located at Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport alongside Secretary Kristi Noem, Governor Ron DeSantis, Congressman Byron Donalds, and other state and local leaders. We hope to see many of you there. The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alcatraz. There is only one road leading in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens. This is an efficient and low-cost way to help carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. We are truly coming off a historic week of President Trump racking up win after win on behalf of the American people. President Trump restored peace through strength and acted decisively as commander-in-chief to obliterate the immediate threat of the Iranian regime's nuclear capabilities and then brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, which continues to hold. Then, the president traveled to the Netherlands and achieved a monumental win for the United States and the NATO alliance by getting our allies to dedicate 5% of their GDPs to military spending. As a result of President Trump unleashing American energy dominance, summer gas prices are at the lowest they have been in 4 years, heading into the July 4th week. And with the incoming Trump economic boom, the stock market continues to roar back, with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both hitting record highs. And on this point of an economic boom, I bring to you original correspondence from the President of the United States to our Fed Chair, Jerome Powell. As the President has consistently stated, the American economy is booming, and there were so many economic analysts who said that this President's policies would drive our economy down, when in fact we have seen the opposite. We've seen a massive deregulation campaign take place. We've seen inflation completely diminished from where it was under the reckless spending and the bad policies of the previous incompetent administration. I would remind the Fed Chair, and I would remind the entire world, that this is a president who was a businessman first, and he knows what he is doing. He has a proven economic formula that worked in his first term as president, and it is working again. The one problem that remains is high interest rates for the American people. The American people want to borrow money cheaply, and they should be able to do that. But unfortunately, we have interest rates that are still too high. So the president sent this note to the Fed Chair today. And if you look at this chart, this is a chart of all of the interest of many countries throughout the world. At the top is Switzerland. They're only paying a quarter for interest rates. Cambodia, Japan, Denmark, Thailand, Botswana, Barbados, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Cuba, Sweden, Morocco, Cabo Verde, South Korea, Algeria, Canada, Albania, Libya, Malaysia, China, New Zealand, Trinidad and Tobago, Czechia, Bolivia, Australia, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, Kuwait, Papua New Guinea, Bosnia, United Kingdom, and the UAE are all paying lower interest rates than the United States of America, which has one of the hottest and strongest economies in the world. The president sent this note to the Fed Chair. It says, Jerome, you are as usual too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the rate by a lot. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being lost, and there is no inflation. And the president is right. There is historically low inflation thanks to his policies. And we will continue to drive down the cost of living in this country for Americans. We will continue to deregulate. And it's also incredibly important that we pass this one big beautiful bill, which is the largest tax cuts in American history. And that's why the White House and the president himself have been in touch with lawmakers all weekend long to get this bill passed. And they are working very hard to do so. It remains a top priority for the president. And this bill has exposed the clear differences between Republicans and Democrats in 2025. The Democrats are doubling down on craziness and radical policies that are undermining the very fabric of our country. Just look at the Democrat nominee for New York City Mayor, Zohran Mamdani. He's a Democrat socialist, really a communist, who proudly calls to defund the police, peddles anti-Semitism, praises pro-Hamas groups, wants Israel abolished, and believes wealthy Americans should not exist. Those are his words, just as recent as this weekend. Meanwhile, under President Trump's leadership, Republicans are fighting tirelessly for everyday, middle-class, working Americans who re-elected this president. And we're carrying out a revolution of common sense. And all of that is packed into this one big, beautiful bill. It delivers the largest middle and working class tax cuts in U.S. history. It keeps America safe by funding the largest ever one-time investment in border security. It's enough to reverse the Biden border invasion. And every single Democrat is against that, against securing our border and deporting millions of criminal illegal aliens. The One Big Beautiful Bill also strengthens and protects Medicaid benefits, despite what Democrats are saying, for eligible American citizens who rely on it, like pregnant women, children, seniors, and people with disabilities, by eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse that threaten to destroy this program that was intended for the most vulnerable in our society. And every single Democrat in Congress is against rooting out that waste, fraud, and abuse, and blocking the 1.4 million illegal aliens who are currently improperly receiving these benefits that should be going to American tax-paying citizens. The Democrats in Congress are more concerned with defending illegal aliens than they are hardworking Americans. And the Big Beautiful Bill also revitalizes our military and enhances our defense capabilities, protects our country from emerging new threats by funding a cutting-edge missile defense system called the Golden Dome. And as we all know, the One Big Beautiful Bill makes the Trump tax cuts permanent. The White House and the President are adamant that this bill is passed and that this bill makes its way to his desk. Republicans need to stay tough and unified during the home stretch, and we are counting on them to get the job done. So, with that, we will take questions. John Fredericks is in our new media seat today. John, thanks for being here. We'll kick it to you.
Thank you, Caroline. Let's get to the One Big Beautiful Bill first. It appears now you're going to get at least 50 votes in the Senate. There'll be some amendments. What is the President's confidence level in getting 218 votes in the House by the end of this week in order for him to sign it on Friday?
Well, look, we are very well aware, the President is very well aware, that this bill needs to not only pass out of the Senate, but it needs to go back to the House, and we need the full weight of the Republican conference to get behind this bill, and we expect them to, and we are confident that they will. The President has been working hand in hand with Senate Majority Leader Thune and also our House Republican leader, or the Speaker of the House, I'm sorry, Mike Johnson, both of whom will be at the White House today to meet with the President yet again. I believe they were here this morning, actually.
I have one follow-up.
Sure.
You outlined Jerome Powell and the note that the President just sent to him. There are many who believe that Powell has been politicized in a lot of different ways. The President has not been shy about acting on things that he believes in. Why not just fire Jerome Powell and put in somebody that is going to lower rates? Why wait?
Well, it's a good question, and one you can ask the President, because that's a decision for him to make. But you're right to point out the politicization of the Fed, and it's very unfortunate for our country. But Jerome Powell cut rates numerous times ahead of the election when Joe Biden was in this Oval Office, but now he refuses to, and the economy is in a much better place. So there really isn't a good explanation for that, and the President is rightfully calling attention to it.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Good afternoon. On Iran, the President posted on his social that he is not even talking to them anymore. When we were at NATO, he said he expected the U.S. and Iran to have talks as early as this week, and that he might even want to see a written agreement. What is the update now if he's saying he's not even talking?
So as I told you from the podium last week, I said the administration, and namely our special envoy Steve Witkoff, has been in communication both directly and indirectly with the Iranians. That communication continues. The President himself has not talked to Iran, which he pointed out in his truth statement. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. Does President Trump want Zoran Mamdani deported?
I haven't heard him say that. I haven't heard him call for that. But certainly he does not want this individual to be elected. I was just speaking to him about it and his radical policies that will completely crush New York City, which is obviously a city that the President holds near and dear to his heart.
There's this Congressman, Andy Ogles. He wants the Attorney General Bondi to explore denaturalization proceedings because he thinks Mamdani could have misrepresented or concealed material support for terrorism based on rap lyrics he wrote in 2017. Does President Trump think this is a worthwhile use of the Attorney General's time?
Well, I'll let the President speak to that. I have not seen those claims, but surely if they are true, it's something that should be investigated.
And could President Trump see himself, you said you just talked to him about this, could he see himself working with a mayor Mamdani, somebody who, on Meet the Press this weekend, was given 3 chances to condemn the phrase globalize the intifada, but he couldn't.
Yeah, look, the president is always willing to work with everyone. He's working with Democrats across the country, Democrat governors, and he said he'll work with people on the far left. He works with Republicans. He works with people in the middle. He wants to do what's right for America, but surely someone who holds these values and is quite literally a communist and condemns every value that makes this country great. Common sense, law and order, low taxes, working hard, and earning your keep in this country. He's against all of that, and I think the president would find it difficult to work with someone like that. If he is elected, I'm sure you'll hear more from the president on that, but we'll have to see. Hopefully the voters of New York City choose wisely. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. The president on Friday said that he was hopeful of a Gaza deal within the next week. Can you give us an update on any progress towards that, or on any talks that the White House is having with Israel on that?
Sure. Well, I know that Mr. Dermer is in Washington this week to meet with senior officials here at the White House. I also know that this administration is in constant communication with Israeli leadership, and the president himself speaks frequently, as you know, to Prime Minister Netanyahu. But this has been a priority for the president since he took office, to end this brutal war in Gaza. It is because of this president that humanitarian aid is being brought into the region. It's heartbreaking to see the images that have come out from both Israel and Gaza throughout this war, and the president wants to see it end. He wants to save lives, and however, the main priority for the president also remains to bring all of the hostages home out of Gaza. As you know, his tireless effort has brought home many of the hostages, including all of the American hostages who were held there. So he wants to see both things happen, and we're continuing to work very hard to do those things. Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. What is the White House's response to Senator Tillis's criticism articulated from the Senate floor yesterday, in which he said passing the big, beautiful bill would betray President Trump's promise to protect Medicaid?
Well, he is just wrong, and the president and the vast majority of Republicans who are supportive of this legislation are right. This bill protects Medicaid, as I laid out for you, for those who truly deserve this program: the needy, pregnant women, children, sick Americans who physically cannot work. And what it does is it ensures that able-bodied Americans who can work 20 hours a week are actually doing so, and that will therefore strengthen and protect those benefits for Americans who need it, as well as cutting out the waste, fraud, and abuse, as well as getting 1.4 million illegal aliens off of the program. So all of those measures are actually going to protect it for those who need it. That's the president's position, and that's what this bill does, and that's why Republicans need to vote for it and get it to the president's desk.
That kind of criticism from a Republican senator, is that reason for concern for the passage of this?
No, it's not. We're confident this bill is going to be back at the White House by the 4th of July. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. On the New York mayoral race, does the president plan to make an endorsement? And secondly, on Jerome Powell, a lot of the focus obviously has been on interest rates and him keeping them high, but a new controversy erupted today. My colleague first reported that he's facing Chairman Jerome Powell is facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime, about luxurious details of the Fed's $2.5 billion renovation project. Senator Loomis has called attention to this. Some experts want him to be investigated. Does the White House want these allegations investigated and, if found substantiated, punished?
I'll have to take a look at those allegations, and I will raise them to the president's attention and let him speak on them himself. To your first question regarding the mayoral race, the president was asked that yesterday by Maria Bartiromo. He refused to give an endorsement, so you won't get one from me at this podium unless he wants me to do that. Philip, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Sure. And then I can go to you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. The president said that he's working on a temporary pause for immigration enforcement in certain industries. I'm wondering what you can tell us about how he's determining which industries are deserving of a pass. He mentioned farmers, but what about, say, construction workers? I mean, shouldn't there just be one standard here?
I don't have any more details to read out for you, but what I can tell you is that the White House is working closely every day with the Department of Agriculture as well as the Department of Homeland Security when it comes to workforce enforcement, worksite enforcement, I'm sorry. And the president's focus and the focus of this administration is, of course, to remove public safety threats from the streets and to deport as many of the illegal criminals, especially the violent criminals that we know are still here because of the previous administration. So that's the main priority and the goal.
And then the president has already made cuts to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, but now Senator Tom Cotton has put forward a bill that would cut the office by another 60%. What's the president's reaction to that legislation, and is this something that he would support, those additional cuts?
I don't know if the president's even...
Where were we? This mega bill in such a precarious position in the Senate, and then also can you talk about the CBO estimate that it would add about 11 million uninsured?
Well, look, when you have illegal murderers and rapists and heinous criminals in a detention facility surrounded by alligators, yes, I do think that's a deterrent for them to try to escape. We do know that some of these illegal criminals have escaped from other detention facilities, like one in New Jersey, which I know was recently reported on. So, of course, we want to keep the American people safe, and we want to remove these public safety threats from our streets, and we want to effectively detain them as best as we can. As for why the president is going, I think his trip to this detention facility actually underscores the need to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, because we need more detention facilities across the country. The last administration let in nearly 20 million illegal people from all over the world, and this administration is focused on arresting and detaining them. But in comparison to that 20 million illegal criminal population in our country, we only have 7,000 ICE agents in the interior who are doing this very important work. And so we obviously need more personnel, we need more resources, and that's why we need to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill.
On the CBO's
Go ahead. Yes, in the pink.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Can you please share some details of China trade deal? Has the U.S. agreed to ease some export, technology export restrictions?
Sure. Well, the final language that was agreed upon in both Geneva and in London was signed just past week. We can get you that final text of the agreement. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
Eamon, and then behind you.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. So on Jay Powell, has the president got a short list of who he wants to see as Jay Powell's successor, and is he going to name a successor as early as this summer?
I won't get ahead of the president on any announcements on that.
Does he like Scott Besson for the job?
Again, I won't get ahead of the president.
And on TikTok, if you could, real quick, he said yesterday he's got a buyer, but the question there is, does he have a seller? And do you have any indication from the Chinese government that they've authorized a sale of TikTok to the U.S. or to U.S. buyers?
What I can tell you is that these discussions with China regarding the sale of TikTok have been ongoing at the highest level, and they will continue. As you know, we have another 90-day extension, and it's just to continue to work out this deal and make sure that TikTok stays on for the American people. That's the president's main goal in this, while protecting their privacy and their security. Behind you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. The president has been calling for a deal in Gaza for 2 days and many posts. Who is blocking the deal? And one other thing, when he posted on Netanyahu's trial, also he said it interferes with the negotiations on Iran and on Gaza. What did he mean by that?
I'm sorry, to your second question?
Question. When he posted about the Israeli Prime Minister trial, he said it interferes with the negotiations on Gaza and on Iran. What did he mean by that?
It interferes because it physically and logistically was interfering. The Prime Minister was slated to go to court last week when he's in the middle of negotiating a peace deal and bringing hostages out of a war-torn region. And so the President was simply, I think, emphasizing his empathy that he has for Bibi Netanyahu and seeing him go what he's going through with his own judicial system in the state of Israel. Clearly, the President knows that very well. He, too, was a victim of a judicial system that was trying to put him in jail, as you all know. You all covered it. But President Trump prevailed. That's why he's back in the Oval Office, and he believes that Bibi Netanyahu is a great leader for the people of Israel. The President just worked with him closely to end that 12-day war and to obliterate Iran's nuclear facility, to take out that imminent threat, not just to the state of Israel, but also to the United States of America and the rest of the world. And he believes that Prime Minister Netanyahu should be praised for that. Go ahead.
Ms. Caroline, on the mega bill and the amendment that would limit Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act, does the president want that amendment to pass?
The president wants this bill to pass. Meredith.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. On trade, we have this looming July 9th deadline coming up. We heard the Treasury Secretary say that he expects to wrap up these trade deals by Labor Day, but when President Trump was asked yesterday about any extensions by July 9th, he said he didn't think that would be necessary. So is the president ruling out any extensions on trade for any nations, even if they're negotiating in good faith?
Well, you heard from him directly. He said he did not think that it would be necessary. He is going to set the rates for many of these countries if they don't come to the table to negotiate in good faith, and he is meeting with his trade team this week to do that. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I just watched a CNN segment on a new app called Ice Block, and it kind of appeared to be promoting this app where you can tell people where ICE agents are. Given the recent rise...
An app that tells people where ICE agents are?
Yes. And given the rise, I believe 500% increase in assaults on ICE agents, I wanted to see if you could comment on that and why CNN would be promoting such an app.
Well, it's a very good question. I'll have to go back and watch the clip myself, but surely it sounds like this would be an incitement of further violence against our ICE officers. As you know, as you stated, there's been a 500% increase in violence against ICE agents, law enforcement officers across the country who are just simply trying to do their jobs and remove public safety threats from our communities. And that's something we as Americans, including journalists at CNN who live in many of these cities where illegal aliens are hiding and were let in from the previous administration, should be very grateful for. So we haven't seen the clip. We'll take a look at it, but certainly it's unacceptable that a major network would promote such an app that is encouraging violence against law enforcement officers who are trying to keep our country safe.
Caroline,
Shelby.
I just wanted to get a clarification on the Senator Rick Scott's amendment. It sounds like the president is agnostic about whether it's attached. Is that accurate?
Look, I'm not going to get into the details of the discussions that are ongoing right now, but the president wants these senators to come to a conclusion, to get this bill back to the White House as soon as possible and make sure that it's a piece of legislation that can make its way back through the House as well. So obviously there's some ping-ponging between both sides of Capitol Hill right now, but that's why Senator Thune and Speaker Johnson are working with the president in lockstep every step of the way. In the back, News Nation, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. The president did
and then in front of you, yes.
In front of
Sure, I'll take both of you.
The president did announce last week that the trade deal with India is closed and this could happen anytime soon. Are there any roadblocks as of now? Are there any updates on that? And how does the president see this about China's role or its influence in the Indo-Pacific region?
Sure, yes. The president said that last week, and it remains true. I actually just spoke to our Secretary of Commerce about it. He was in the Oval Office with the president. They are finalizing these agreements, and you'll hear from the president and his team, his trade team, very soon when it comes to India.
And on China? How do we counter China on that front?
Yes, I mean, look, India remains a very strategic ally in the Asia Pacific, and the president has a very good relationship with Prime Minister Modi, as you know, and he will continue to have that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. On the reconciliation bill, Senator Tillis from the floor yesterday seemed to suggest President Trump was getting bad counsel on the effects of the bill. Is President Trump aware of the analyses, and there are several of these, that suggest if rural hospitals potentially close, if there are Medicaid patients in the millions that become ineligible for that?
Yes, and that claim is just simply untrue. Rural hospitals comprise 7% of all hospital spending on Medicaid, and that illustrates that they have not benefited from the massive increase of waste, fraud, and abuse under the Biden administration. So this bill strengthens Medicaid. It will protect those benefits that hardworking Americans need, and that's why the president wants this bill to pass. The senator was wrong. The president put out a Truth Social post addressing it, and then the senator announced he's no longer running for office anymore. So I think that case has been closed, and the White House is continuing to focus on getting this legislation to the president's desk for his signature. Go ahead. Yes, you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, you and then you. There's confusion here.
A question on Syria.
Go
Has
ahead.
the Syrian government get back to you that they are ready to join the Abraham Accord? Is there any discussion with the Syrian and Israeli government for having a security agreement? This is the first question. And the second question, what's the end goal for talking with the Iranian? Is that only focused on the nuclear program, or they are willing to speak about other issues like the proxy groups and ballistic missiles, or even trade with Iran?
So as for discussions between Syria and Israel, you'll have to reach out to those respective governments. I can't comment on that. But what I can tell you is that this afternoon, the president will be signing an executive order to terminate the United States sanctions program on Syria. And this is in an effort to promote and support the country's path to stability and peace. The order will remove sanctions on Syria while maintaining sanctions on the former President Assad, his associates, human rights abusers, drug traffickers, persons linked to chemical weapons activities, ISIS and their affiliates, and Iranian proxies. And this is, again, an action that the president promised and shocked the world with in Saudi Arabia, because he's committed to supporting a Syria that is stable, unified, and at peace with itself and its neighbors. The president met with Syria's new president when we were in the Middle East, as you know, and so this is another promise made and promise kept by this president to promote peace and stability in the region.
Go ahead, Caroline. Questions on two topics, if you don't mind. I will start with NTD here. First, on Canada. Canada says it's now dropping its digital services tax on American tech companies days after President Trump says he's halting all trade talks with Canada. First, what's the president's reaction to this? Can you tell us more about his call with Prime Minister Carney over the weekend? How did he get Carney to drop it? And also, what's the impact on American tech companies given this latest progress, as the president says he has been fighting for American tech companies?
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax that would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
And on Harvard, if you don't mind, the administration today formally accused Harvard of violating civil rights laws by not doing enough to fight anti-Semitism. We know that the president has talked to us before about Harvard potentially having a deal with the administration in the coming days. Do you have an updated timeline for that? How's the negotiations going? And is more pressure needed for Harvard to take fighting anti-Semitism seriously?
Well, there was quite a direct letter that was sent to Harvard this morning, as you know. The negotiations are taking place behind closed doors, so I won't comment on that. But what I will share with all of you, for those who haven't seen it, is the context of this letter, because I think it's very important. And this comes from the Department of Health and Human Services, which concluded after a thorough investigation that Harvard University is in a violent violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin. And if you read some of the content of the investigation and what they found, the majority of Jewish students reportedly experienced negative bias or discrimination on their campus, while a quarter of Jewish students at Harvard felt physically unsafe. Jewish and Israeli students were assaulted and spit on. They hid their kippahs for fear of being harassed and concealed their Jewish identity from classmates for fear of ostracization. Images were widely circulated amongst the Harvard community that trafficked in obvious anti-Semitic tropes, including one that showed a $sign inside of a Star of David, and the campus was vandalized with anti-Semitic stickers, including one that showed the Israeli flag with a swastika. The Harvard campus was racked by demonstrations, as you all know, violent protests that violated the university's rules of conduct. The demonstrations called for genocide and murder, denied Jewish and Israeli students access to campus spaces. These are all facts that Harvard cannot dispute, and that's why the administration has found them in violation of Title VI and has threatened to withhold their federal funding, because if you break federal law, you should not be receiving federal tax dollars. And so I rest my case on Harvard. Andrea.
Yeah, so President Macron of France earlier today said that tariffs levied by powerful countries are often a form of blackmail, and criticized the sort of process that's underway. Didn't mention the United States specifically, but said that these tariffs are really hurting developing countries. So there's this big UN conference going on. What do you say to that? What is the president, was he aware of that comment, and did he have any response?
I think the president and the White House would certainly reject that characterization by Prime Minister Macron. Tariffs are an effective use of presidential power to bring back the middle class, to bring back our manufacturing industry, which was the backbone of our American economy and has been hollowed out by globalist politicians who have caved to foreign countries instead of doing what's right for American workers. That's why the president is effectively utilizing his authority to wage tariffs and to utilize tariffs, and continues to be in discussions and negotiations on trade to do what's right for America. And Europe and the rest of the world might not be used to that, but President Trump is back in town, and he's going to do what's right for our people and our country.
Can I just follow up on Netanyahu? So there's a report in Israeli media that the Prime Minister will actually be here, that Netanyahu will be here today meeting with the President. Can you confirm that?
I don't believe Prime Minister Netanyahu is here today. I think you guys would know about that by now.
Okay.
Unless there's something going on I don't know about, but I don't believe he is. I do know he has expressed interest in coming to Washington and meeting with the President, and we are working on a date for that. I do not believe it is today, but that would be fun. You never know in this White House, let's be honest. Go ahead.
Thanks, Carolyn. Does the president support this new measure in the big, beautiful bill that would impose steep new taxes on new wind and solar projects?
I believe you're referring to the credits for wind and solar projects. And
what we're talking about the new tax. There's a new tax that it's estimated would add 10 to 20% to the cost of any new wind and solar projects that start after this year.
Again, I don't want to comment on the specifics of provisions, but I'm sure the president will speak on that directly. Again, this is an ongoing process. The president continues to be very much engaged with the leadership in both the Senate and the House to get this bill back to his desk.
Did the president ask for that provision? Because the National Building Trades Union is saying that it's the equivalent of terminating more than 1,000 Keystone XL pipeline projects. Is that something that would concern him?
Well, the president spoke on this yesterday in his interview, and he said he understands that legislators want to protect jobs in their communities and in their districts. And so he understands why some of them are against this provision, but he also understands why people want the provision. So again, this is an ongoing deliberation and discussion, and the president is engaged in this very much. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. We've been hearing from White House officials for weeks that you're close on trade deals with a number of countries. Can we get any update on which countries will have deals by the 9th and when there may be any announcements?
I'll let the president and the trade team speak on it.
Can you respond to the CBO estimate that the Senate bill would increase the deficit by nearly $3.3 trillion?
This is one of the most fiscally conservative pieces of legislation that has ever made its way through Capitol Hill. There's $2 trillion in mandatory savings in this bill, and not only that, the projected growth that this bill will bring to our economy. It will be an economic boom. The Council of Economic Advisors has an analysis that shows that the bill will generate $4.1 trillion in economic growth, and it will cut taxes, putting more money back into the American people's pockets. That's why this president wants this bill to pass, and I know he's busy working the phones and doing what he needs to do today to make it happen. So we'll see you all later. Thank you. We'll see you in Florida tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, we are still watching those situations both on the Senate floor, and the vigil for this Alabama teenager who was killed is nearly over as well. So we'll continue to watch those if anything develops in either of those shots. But we do know that, man, it's been a crazy day for NBA trades. Jeb's been keeping me up on all things that have been breaking in amidst all the news that we've had as well. Charlotte had quite the week last week, Jeb. Ryan Kalkbrenner added a 7'1" center, 270 pounds. I'm sure he'll put on some weight as well, but a lot of folks are excited about this young man suiting up for the Charlotte Hornets. We went one-on-one with him as well and Danielle Stein, and we'll go to this interview now.
Ryan, officially welcome to Charlotte.
Thank you.
As we're taking a look around over the city, what are just your first impressions of being here in Queen City?
I mean, it's a beautiful place, and I keep hearing great things about it. Great place to live, so I'm really looking forward to it, and just excited to be a member of the Hornets.
As you were getting ready for your draft process, we heard that you came out and did your visit. You did a workout with the team. Walk me through what your impressions were of Charles Lee, as well as the coaching staff, as well as the team in general.
Yeah, it was a great first impression with the team, the workout. I thought it went well. I liked the people that I was working with there, so
I'm really excited to get to work with them every single day and not just one day, so it'll be a great time.
Where were you on draft night? Walk me through the call that you got and who you were surrounded by.
We were at a lake in Iowa, and I had my family, my wife's family, and my head coach from Creighton, and it was an awesome time. You know, getting that call and seeing my name up on the board, it was a dream come true, and couldn't have asked to go to a better place. So.
Were you sweating a little bit as you were waiting for the call?
A little bit. If I had gone a few more picks without getting drafted, I really would have started sweating, but a little bit.
I know that you had a very long college career where you have a lot of accolades that you've picked up. You're coming into a team where you're going to be older as a rookie than some other guys on the team. How do you feel like the experience you had in college at Creighton is going to lend itself well on the Hornets team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously NBA is better in college basketball, but you still learn a few things playing 5 years of college basketball. So, I mean, just coming in the NBA, even though I'm a rookie, I actually need to be comfortable enough to use my voice and speak up when I see things. Obviously, I don't know everything. I'm going to learn a lot from these guys, but I feel like I can chime in a time or two and help out. So, just being willing to use my voice and speak up when I see something.
Your game is fun to watch with the dunks, with the blocks, with everything that you bring on the defensive side as well. Where did your game really start to develop?
I was not very good my freshman year at Creighton, so I think my sophomore year is when I really started to took off, but it was really more of the mental side of things. I had the skill, I had the talent, I had all the physical stuff, but I couldn't get over the mental hurdle, and then my sophomore year I finally did, and my game took off, and you know, I've done a lot of winning since, got a few accolades, and it's been a lot of fun.
Was there anything in particular you can think of that helped you getting over that mental hurdle? Anyone that helped you get over that? Or?
Yeah, I met with our mental guy at Creighton, and we came up with this strategy to help me move on from bad plays in games, and it made a big difference.
How is that translated through the rest of your career at this point?
I mean, it just kind of trained my brain to forget about bad plays until after the game, and kind of enjoy every single minute on the court. Because, as I know now, my college career is over. I'm never gonna get that time back. But by the end, I learned to take it all in and really enjoy it all. And I'm gonna take that same experience to the NBA. Like, I don't know how long I'm gonna play in the NBA, but I'm gonna enjoy every minute of it.
You're coming in with a pretty fun draft class with this group of 4. There's some connections already. Obviously, you've played against Liam. That little rivalry in the Big East is not a little rivalry. Talk about what those games were like when you guys would square up.
Yeah, those are always the most fun games. I mean, as a competitor, that's what you live for. You live for highly competitive games. I don't think any of my games against UConn were ever more than 10 points difference, so it was awesome. I mean, like I said, as a competitor, that's all you can really ask for, and they definitely gave us a run for our money plenty of times.
How nice is it, I guess, to be starting your NBA journey with other guys who are in the same position as you like this?
Yeah, it definitely helps a lot. You get to come in with some guys who have your common situation, and people bond over that.
All right, so Con Knipple and we've got Ryan Kalkbrenner as the 2 new Hornets. Really a young roster, I'd say, and a roster that's poised to gel and come together and hopefully make an attack on the NBA next year. Looking forward to that. We'll look forward to see you tonight at 11 on WCNC as well. We appreciate you joining us from 7 to 9 tonight.